Ronan Farrow, who broke many of the sexual assault and harassment allegations against Harvey Weinstein in The New Yorker, has just taken this entire story, this entire debate, to a whole new level with a new piece in The New Yorker that really exposes this PR machine that Weinstein had, which consisted of lawyers, publicists, public relations firms, but also private investigative firms, which were used in a well-documented piece, as Farrow lays out, to dig up dirt, to intimidate Weinstein's accusers, and also to intimidate journalists who are following this. They used fake names, phony companies, people who are not only in the private eye business, but in one case, former Israeli intelligence agencies, people from the intelligence agencies. And they would, under false pretenses sometimes, call journalists like Farrow himself, like Jody Cantor of the New York Times, like Ben Wiles of New York Magazine, try to find out what they were doing, try to apply pressure, going to people like actress Rose McGowan, who was one of the first to make these accusations against Weinstein, and to try to befriend her and say they would invest money in her company and all of this stuff. It's just incredible. And one of the most high-profile figures who got caught up in this is David Boies. If you don't know that name, he's a well-regarded, celebrated liberal lawyer, defended Al Gore in the 2000 recount, argued the case for gay marriage before the Supreme Court, and has now been caught in a terrible conflict of interest because Boies was a lawyer for the New York Times, at least in one libel case, and at the same time he's secretly working for Harvey Weinstein. His law firm pays one of these private eye agencies to dig up dirt, to investigate, to use the kind of tactics I just spoke of, in order to stop the New York Times from publishing a story about the allegations against Harvey Weinstein. And after Farrow disclosed this, the Times put out a blistering statement saying, we consider this intolerable conduct, a grave betrayal of trust, and a breach of basic professional standards that all lawyers are required to observe. Now, in the New Yorker piece, Boies says, well, I don't really think it's a conflict of interest. The two things were kind of separate. But then he does say it seemed like a reasonable accommodation he was making, his firm hiring this private eye outfit that got as much as $600,000 or more under this contract for a client. But it was not thought through, says Boies, and that was my mistake. Boy. And there's so much more in this piece about the role of the National Enquirer, which also, whose parent company was also working with Weinstein. His reporters were digging up stuff to help Weinstein. All the techniques here. And this is the kind of stuff that, as a reporter, is really, really hard to get, hard to document. But Farrow's got a lot of documentation for this, as well as interview with some of the key players. And it just shows you, people always ask the question, well, how come this was never exposed before? Why was this an open secret in Hollywood and all of that? It's very, very hard to corroborate, to get people on the record, to get the documents, to get the emails. But now we're going beyond the original set of allegations and accusations against Weinstein, and there are many, and it seems like more keep coming out, and the police are investigating. But now we're getting to the machine that Weinstein used, spending a lot of money to defend himself, to pressure the press, to dig up dirt on journalists, to intimidate accusers into not going public. All of this is laid out, and I think there's going to be more of this. It's a remarkable journalistic achievement that raises a lot of questions, and I think there's going to be a spotlight now on the people who help, not just Weinstein, perhaps people like that, when they use unsavory tactics, particularly if they're working both sides of the street, as in the case of David Boies and the New York Times.